You know that moment when a seemingly small choice, maybe a little fork in the road, ends up taking you somewhere completely unexpected.
Oh, yeah. Like a technical decision early on that just snowballs.
Exactly. Or maybe deciding where to put resources, and suddenly a key person is free for something critical. We've all seen it.
Definitely. Those decisions that, looking back, were much bigger than they seemed.
Well, today on the deep dive, we're getting right into the heart of that for engineering management. Decision-making itself.
Hmm.
You shared a great resource, decision-making and engineering management, and we're really going to unpack it.
That's right. I mean, if you're an engineer manager, your days are just packed with decisions, aren't they? Big strategic ones, small resource ones.
Constantly evaluating options, trying to steer things right.
Exactly. And having a solid grip on the process of making those decisions is, well, it's crucial.
So our goal today isn't just to read definitions from this document. It's more about exploring the thinking behind it.
Right. We want to give you some frameworks, maybe some insights that can help you make those tough calls with a bit more clarity.
Confidence.
Yeah, confidence. We'll be using this document as our guide, looking at why decision-making is so fundamental, the steps involved, some tools.
We'll pull out the key ideas, use the examples from the text to make it tangible.
So by the end, you should hopefully have a good handle on a structured way to approach decisions and just how vital it is in management.
Let's dive in.
Okay, so first off, why is this so critical in engineering management? The stakes seem pretty high.
Well, the document nails it, really. It's not just a task. It's like a core responsibility, a central pillar.
Your choices really matter. They impact timelines, budgets, team morale, everything.
The ripples can spread right through the organization. Think about resource allocation, get that wrong, and a project can stall badly.
Or crisis management, which the document also mentions. Your ability to decide quickly and effectively there.
Can be the difference between containing problem and, well, disaster. There's that stark quote in there. A major blunder in decision-making may cause organizational destruction.
Wow. It's blunt, yeah, but it really hammers home the weight of it. You can't just rely on gut feelings all the time.
You need a more structured approach.
Exactly. Like choosing a new tech platform without fully checking compatibility or training needs, that could blow up later.
Right. Or rushing a decision in a crisis without thinking through all the angles.
Yeah.
You could make things worse.
Precisely.
Okay, so it's fundamental. But what is decision-making really? The document gives a definition.
Yeah, it calls it the process of identifying and choosing alternatives to meet situational demands.
So it's a process, not just picking something. It starts with seeing a need.
A need or a challenge or an opportunity. And the document stresses a couple of things about this process.
What are those?
First, it happens everywhere, not just the top floor. Team leads make decisions, directors make decisions.
Just different scales, different impacts.
Right. The scope changes, but that core process of choosing between options, it's always there. It's interesting to think how your decisions change depending on your role.
Good point. And the second thing,
That it's not separate from other management tasks. It's woven right into planning, organizing, leading, controlling.
like the quote says, it's the heart of all management functions.
Exactly. It underpins everything else.
So as an engineer manager, you can't really avoid it. You have to be decisive.
Absolutely. Sitting on the fence, indecision, that just drains energy and creates confusion for the team.
And you're accountable, right? The outcomes land on your shoulders.
They do. Successes and setbacks, they reflect on your leadership.
The document gives that example. The production manager choosing between an AC unit for a hot workshop or a needed forklift with a tight budget.
Yeah, seems simple on the surface, AC versus forklift.
But then you think, worker comfort? Yeah. Maybe productivity boost from the AC versus smoother logistics with the forklift? It gets complicated fast.
It does. You've got to look deeper. What's the real impact of the heat? Is the current forklift about to die? Are there other options, like renting?
So gathering data, weighing the pros and cons against your main goal.
That's the idea, moving beyond the immediate problem.
Okay. Now the document offers a framework for this, an 8-step process. This seems really practical. Let's walk through it. Step 1, diagnose the problem.
Right. This is about spotting that gap, the difference between where you are now and where you want to be.
Defining the core issue.
Exactly. The example is a construction firm needing a 25-story building. The problem is, no building yet. Simple gap.
Can't solve it if you don't know what it is. Okay, step 2, analyze the environment. What's involved there?
This is about context. Understanding everything surrounding the decision, the document splits it into internal factors.
Things you can maybe control, like budget, staff skills, equipment.
Yeah. And then external constraints, stuff outside your control. Market shifts, competitors, regulations.
Like the chemical factory example where community opposition forces a relocation. Big external factor.
Huge. Or even just fast-changing tech and engineering that can be an external constraint you didn't see coming, forces you to rethink.
So mapping out all those influences.
Yeah.
Then step 3, articulate the problem opportunity. How's that different from diagnosing?
Diagnosis finds the gap. Articulation defines it clearly, preferably, in a measurable way.
Getting specific, moving from a feeling to a hard definition.
Exactly. The example is wanting to boost output by 30% for a client. That's specific. It gives you a target.
Right. Clarity helps focus. Step 4 is develop viable alternatives. Sounds like brainstorming time.
It is, pretty much. Once the problem is clear, you generate potential solutions. Think broadly at first.
Don't shut ideas down too early.
Right. Then you filter out the ones that just aren't feasible. Like for that firm needing more output, maybe you hire more people, maybe subcontract, maybe buy automation. Those are alternatives.
Got it. Step 5, evaluate alternatives. This is where the analysis happens.
Yep. You look hard at the pros and cons of each option you came up with. The document gives 3 main criteria. Value.
Like potential profit or efficiency gains.
Exactly. Then cost, not just money up front, but opportunity costs, ongoing costs.
And risk, the chances of it working out or backfiring.
Right. How likely is success? What could go wrong? The job applicant evaluation sheet example shows this, scoring candidates on education, experience, skills, a structured comparison.
It's also where you have to watch out for your own biases, right? Like favoring your first idea.
Oh, absolutely. Confirmation bias is a real thing. Need to stay objective.
Okay, structured comparison. Then step 6 is make a choice, the decision point.
This is where you rank the options based on that evaluation value, cost, risk, and pick the one that seems best for the problem, given your constraints.
And the document warns about consequences.
Yeah, it says, identify all significant consequences of each choice. It's a reminder to think long-term. What are the ripple effects?
Not just the immediate win. Definitely worth remembering. Okay, step 7, implement decision. Choosing is one thing, doing is another.
Totally. A great decision means nothing if it's not put into action effectively. You need a plan. You need resources, time, people, money.
And getting people on board. Stakeholder buy-in.
Crucial. As the document says, implementation makes decision-making meaningful. Otherwise, it's just talk.
True. And the last step, 8, evaluate and adapt results.
Closing the loop.
Exactly. You need to watch what happens. Did the decision achieve what you wanted? The document mentions feedback loops, control measures.
Checking if you're on track, basically.
Yeah, and assessing the final results.
Yeah.
If things aren't working out as planned, you need to be ready to revisit the decision. Adapt.
It's iterative, not always a straight line, especially in engineering.
For sure. Things change, you get new information, you adjust.
Okay, that 8-step process feels like a really solid roadmap. Now, the document also talks about different approaches to solving problems, qualitative and quantitative. Let's touch on qualitative first. Right. Qualitative evaluation leans more on judgment, experience, gut feeling sometimes. It's less about the hard numbers.
Like the factory shift scheduling example.
Yeah.
Where you consider personalities, team balance, things hard to quantify.
Exactly. Subjective factors play a big role.
So when would an engineer manager use this more subjective style?
The document suggests it's often fine for simpler problems, things you've dealt with before, or when you need a quick decision and the downside risk is low.
Like the manager assigning overtime because someone's out sick.
Yeah, that's a good example. Routine, short-term, based on immediate need.
Makes sense for everyday stuff. But for the bigger, more complex issues, that's where quantitative models step in.
That's generally the idea. Quantitative methods use math, data, analytical models to break down the problem and compare options systematically.
And the document lists quite a few. Inventory models, queuing theory, PRTCPM, forecasting, regression, simulation, linear programming, sampling, statistical decision theory.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It is a big list, but think of it like a specialized toolkit. You don't need every tool for every single job.
Okay.
Each model is designed for certain kinds of problems. Maybe we can highlight a few that pop up often in engineering.
Yeah, that would be great. Give us a feel for them. How about inventory models?
Okay. These help you figure out the best amount of stuff materials, parts to keep in stock. It's a balancing act.
Balancing holding costs against the risk of running out.
Exactly. Or ordering costs. The document mentions EOQ, economic order quantity, which finds the sweet spot for order size to minimize total costs. There are variations too, like for production runs or quantity discounts.
So an engineering team managing unique components could use this to order smarter.
Precisely. Optimize their stock levels.
Okay, what about queuing theory? Sounds like waiting lines.
It is. It analyzes waiting lines or queues. Could be customers, could be tasks waiting for processing, even data packets in a network.
Trying to minimize wait times without overspending on service.
That's the core trade-off. The examples like car service centers or port logistics fit perfectly. They need enough capacity, but not too much.
Have you ever thought about applying that to, say, how tasks flow through an engineering team? Looking for bottlenecks.
That's a fantastic application. Yeah, you absolutely could model workflow that way. See where things get held up.
Interesting. Okay, next. Network models PERT and CPM. These sound like project management essentials.
They really are. Great for planning and controlling complex projects with lots of interconnected steps.
What's the difference between PERT and CPM again?
PERT uses 3 time estimates for each task. Optimistic, pessimistic, most likely. Good when there's uncertainty. CPM usually uses 1 estimate for more predictable tasks.
But both help find the critical path.
Yes. That sequence of tasks that dictates the total project time. If anything on the critical path slips, the whole project slips. Vital for engineers to know.
Definitely. Okay, how about forecasting and regression analysis? Using data to look ahead.
Forecasting is just that using past and present data to predict future needs, like estimating staffing needs for next year, or planning facility upgrades based on demand forecasts.
And regression.
That's a statistical tool to understand relationships between variables. Simple regression looks at 2 variables. Multiple regression looks at, well, multiple. You could use it to predict, say, software development time based on things like team size or code complexity.
So, trying to model how different factors influence an outcome.
Got it.
Simulation.
Sounds like
Virtual testing.
Pretty much. You build a computer model of a real system, maybe a production line or a network, and test what-if scenarios.
See how changes might affect performance without doing it for real.
Exactly. Test a new software design under heavy load, for instance, before you build it. But the document notes simulation shows you what might happen. It doesn't automatically find the best solution.
Ah, okay. Provides insights, not guarantees. And lastly, statistical decision theory.
Okay.
Mentions Bayesian analysis. Sounds complex.
It can be, yeah. It's a framework for making choices when outcomes are uncertain, using probabilities and potential payoffs or losses.
And Bayesian analysis.
That's a cool part of it. It lets you update your probabilities, your beliefs, as new information comes in. You start with an initial guess, then refine it with data.
Like assessing a new component. Start with the specs, then update based on your own tests.
Perfect example. You're constantly learning and adjusting your assessment based on evidence.
Wow, okay. That overview really shows how powerful data can be in decision-making for engineers. There are some serious tools available.
There really are. And, going back to the document summary, the key is often blending these approaches.
Combining that quantitative analysis with qualitative judgment, your experience, your intuition.
Exactly. It's rarely just one or the other in practice. It's about knowing which tools to use when, and also trusting your experience. And crucially, learning from the results.
That adaptation piece again.
Yeah.
Seeing what worked, what didn't, and feeding that back in.
Continuous improvement. That's the goal.
So for everyone tuning in, we've really dug into this idea of decision-making and engineering management. Hopefully you've got a better feel for why it's so vital, the kind of structured thinking you can apply.
And maybe an awareness of some of these quantitative tools that could help with trickier problems.
It's about making those choices more informed, more confident.
Precisely. And maybe a final thought to leave you with, thinking about this blend of, structured analysis and that essential human judgment. Where in your work right now is there maybe one decision, even a small one, where consciously applying just one of those 8 steps?
Yeah.
Or maybe exploring a simple quantitative angle like basic forecasting.
Might lead you to a different perspective, maybe a better outcome.
Exactly. It's just something to think about because getting better at this, it's really an ongoing journey in leadership and problem solving.